think dinosaur, and most of us think this. The 1993 classic film Jurassic Park, with its dinosaur resurrection experiment gone wrong, and its embattled hero, famed paleontologist Alan Grant.
You consulted on that movie.
I did consult on all those movies.
And they said the guy Alan Grant was you.
Yes, yeah, well, fortunately he didn't get eaten.
Meet Jack Horner, the real-life Alan Grant. He's one of the most prominent and controversial paleontologists in the country, a dyslexic MacArthur Foundation genius who never finished college and who says he doesn't care why dinosaurs went extinct. To him, the important part is how they lived. Horner's practice of breaking dinosaur bones apart and sending the insides to Mary Schweitzer has landed the two of them at the center of one of the biggest controversies paleontology has seen in years. It started back in 2000 with a series of coincidences. A member of Jack's team, Bob Harmon, wandered away from a dig site one day to eat lunch and noticed a small piece of bone sticking out of the side of a 50-foot cliff.
I could tell pretty much what it was from where I was sitting, that it was a T-Rex metatarsal.
How was it sticking out? You mean it was the side, here's a cliff, and it was like a little jutting out?
Yep, exactly.
He got a folding chair, and he stacked it on these rocks right there. And you can see that this is on the sheer side hill of a cliff.
This is not possible.
No,
is he attached to anything?
No, he's not. That's Bob.
Jack named the T-Rex B-Rex in Bob's honor and made the decision to dig it out.
But this was under 50 feet of rock. I mean, this was in a terrible place. There was no road to it. There was no access to it. And so for the next 3 summers, we sent out climbing crews, people that could rappel down cliffs with jackhammers. I mean, it was a horrendous undertaking.
The site was so remote that bones had to be lifted out by helicopter. But the giant cast containing B-Rex's thigh bones was too heavy. The chopper couldn't get it off the ground. So after all that excavating, Jack gave the order to cut one of B-Rex's femurs in 2.
Now that was heartbreaking.
No, well, not really. I mean, get a chance to see inside.
He shipped the bone fragments that fell out to Mary Schweitzer.
So the first piece I pulled out, I picked it up and I looked at it, and I said, it's a girl and it's pregnant.
That's the first time, as I understand it, that anyone had ever been able to identify gender in any dinosaur.
Yes.
Mary recognized a specific type of bone called medullary bone, which female birds produce when they're about to lay eggs. No one had ever found it before in a dinosaur. It was yet another link to birds, and it meant that B-Rex was definitely no Bob.
So she calls you up and she says...
Calls up and says, we have medullary bone.
Oh, now this had to be thrilling.
Yes, very exciting. And that wasn't all.
What happened next happened by mistake. Mary put some fragments of the bone in acid to dissolve away the outermost layer of mineral. But the acid worked too fast, and all the mineral dissolved away. Being a fossil, there should have been nothing left. But there was, and it was elastic, like living tissue.
This is the piece.
No.
She showed us video she took under the microscope.
That's really what happened?
Yes.
That's the dinosaur bone?
Without mineral now. That's what was left.
It looked like the soft tissue she would have expected to find if it had been modern bone. This was impossible. This bone was 68 million years old.
So you see this and you think, what? You
I didn't want to tell anybody.
You'd be ridiculed,
yes.
Right?
And so I said to my technician, okay, do it again. I don't believe it.
And yet, in sample after sample, they were there. Things that looked suspiciously like flexible, transparent blood vessels. She finally mustered the courage to tell Jack.
She said she dissolved the bone away and there were blood vessels. And, you know, I was like shocked. I mean,
how could that be?
How could that be? That's right.
The things Mary was finding inside dinosaur bones,
look at that,
blood vessels, and even what seemed to be intact cells, pose a radical challenge to the existing rules of science. That organic material can't possibly survive even 1 million years, let alone 68 million. Mary, Jack, and their team published their B-Rex findings in a series of papers in the journal Science and were promptly attacked. Critics said their samples might have been contaminated, or that the supposed blood vessels were actually something called biofilm, a type of slime. But as Mary showed us, she's been able to replicate her findings. These are pieces of an even older dinosaur, a well-preserved 80-million-year-old duckbill. When she dissolved it away in acid...
Let's put this under the scope here.
Well, look.
Is that a blood vessel?
This is a blood vessel.
You're
You
kidding.
see the branches right there? And look at all of them. And it's so consistent over and over and over again. We do this bone and it comes out and I get excited every time. I can't help it. I mean, 80 million years old.
Mary published her new results last year, and while some of her critics have been swayed, the controversy still rages, and the stakes are high. If blood vessels can survive 80 million years, what about DNA?